Good morning, everyone. It's a very chilly morning here. I was just telling Brian I'm seeing ice float down the Hudson River from my window this morning.
Yep, it is definitely a cold one out there today for those of you that are up in the Northeast, and certainly our brothers in the Great White and sisters in the Great White North. It is cold right now, and we're supposed to see some serious snow on Saturday, potentially, too.
Yes. The inner child inside of me is very excited, and the adult of me is not looking forward to
Yeah, but for you guys in the city, that's almost like show stopping. Out here in the burbs, we know how to move that snow.
it. Well, today we want to start a series talking about the office of the vCIO and building that office. We feel like it's really important to go to the building blocks. Start off with defining the role, talking about the responsibilities of the role, and then helping with navigating how to really effectively execute these responsibilities. And last week, Brian, you broke my heart and the hearts of millions of children by declaring that unicorns do not exist.
I know unicorns do not exist. I shouldn't say they don't exist, and I'll give you a little bit more hope, Rachel. There are some unicorns out there, but they're few and far in between. And a lot of times for the MSP community, not only are they few and far in between, but sometimes they come with a price tag that just doesn't make sense, too. So there are some unicorns out there. I didn't mean to break the hearts of children everywhere, but what we really mean by there's no unicorns is I talk to a lot of MSPs that when they're entering into programs, to start conducting business reviews and really engaging with their customers at a higher level, they're struggling to find the resource to do it. Some bring forth really technical resources, some bring forth the salespeople, and each of those people can potentially be groomed into those roles. So the good news is you can groom a unicorn, I guess. But the reality is they come with a specific set of skill sets and they're usually lacking in others. Very simply, the role of the vCIO is kind of to bridge the gap between the customer's business and the technology you bring to that customer. So we're really talking about things like, business to technology alignment, showing how the technology is going to support the business case for the key initiatives that drive the business. So the resource that fits in that role really has to have some understanding of finance, understanding of business principles, as well as at least a good oversight of the technical side. Now, why did I say, some people are using technical, some are using sales? Companies definitely view the role differently. Many of these look at this as truly a pure selling event. And I've always said it is a selling event, but it needs to be stealth, man. When your customer knows that you're coming in on a business review, and this is why many struggle getting that appointment, because they're coming in to get a pitch, they're not going to respond to that. I can imagine, Rachel, you wouldn't be too psyched if I said I'm going to come down and start it off with the budget,
Well, it's like anytime, in my world, anytime you find out someone is selling Arbonne or, any of these other multi-level marketing things. No offense to anyone who's doing that or whose partner or spouse is doing that, but when you've got that friend who's doing that, you know that your friendship is based upon, are you going to start selling the product that they're selling also?
And the expectation you're going to be a consumer, right? And it changes that Friday night dinner out that you do with those people because you're waiting for the hammer, right? So we want to make the hammer very soft. Get rid of the hammer, make it just a tap on the shoulder, and make it a conclusion for the customer. So when we're doing that, what we're really talking about is that this role has different spots. So I'm going to take a step back and kind of bridge this concept of, while there are guys, and it's usually the business owner that falls into this because they've been forced to learn business principles while they grow their business, and many of them come from a technical background. But when it gets past the point where you're scaling and you can't be that vCIO, who are you going to bring into it and how are you going to accomplish that? And that's where I see people struggle. It's the scale problem. So what we want to do at this stage is really look at this concept of the office of vCIO. Now, the origins of this concept is simple for me. In between my time of leaving the MSP industry and having our successful exit there, and then moving forward to building vCIO Toolbox, I served in a traditional enterprise corporate environment. I was the VP of Tech Acceleration for a Fortune 6 healthcare firm. And that's where the Office of CIO existed. And when you really look at what's happening in the enterprise, the Office of CIO was a group, usually lives in shared services, so similar and akin to what MSPs provide to their customers. Just instead of business units, we're doing it to different types of businesses. In this shared services group, it was understood nobody could be the leader. So the Office of vCIO bridged project managers, program managers, business analysts, and development leads and technical leads to really bring stories to the client and be able to really take innovative steps to bring new technology to either reduce cost, enhance speed of delivery, meet some compliance regulation, all the things we face every day with our customers. So, when you look at your own MSPs, almost all of you have this wonderful, talented bench of people that you've cultivated and curated over the years. So how do you make this a shared responsibility? And at the same time, by making it a shared responsibility, get some traction where a single resource can't. So that's part of what we're really looking for, Rachel, is kind of building this Office of vCIO where there's some defined responsibilities and contributions expected from everybody to really ensure that we have customer success and broaden our advisory scope with those customers.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that, the goal of this is to boost the advisory services, start preparing for this next gen MSP that we talked about last week.
Yeah. We everybody knows the MSP game's changing, right? Let's start with the things the MSP is facing. More liability coming down our way, potential governance over ourselves coming into play. States are starting to adopt cybersecurity laws, which we now need to make sure that we're not only getting our customers in tune with, but we're delivering services under those guidelines, or we could be held culpable. From the customer side of life, they need advisory to move forward. Our days of the pure break fix, as we talked about last week, are starting to diminish. Yes, there'll always be equipment on site, but less and less of it's on site, more and more of it's moving to the cloud. Our people are more geographically spread out, and that will probably continue to be a trait. Even as people return to the offices, we're seeing it's oftentimes not in full force. So there's never been a time that's more ripe for building an advisory practice and almost going back to the roots of what the IT solution provider community looked like for those of us with gray hair before the MSP emergence happened. We did a lot of projects, we did a lot of solution architecture there, and support kind of came out of it. We've now kind of shifted that model where we really focus on the recurring revenue and support, and I wholeheartedly believe in that from a business growth standpoint. But sometimes we're leaving money on the table by giving the advisory away for free, or we're not using the advisory to drive different types of dollars into our business for the future. So you're spot on. The next generation MSP really has to think about, what am I going to look like in 5 years, and what steps do I need to take today to get my customer ready to be part of that when that time hits?
Yeah, and the vCIO is at the forefront of that because they're the liaison with the client.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a school of thought that the vCIO is really the customer advocate, almost works for the client but lives in your office, right? Mm-hmm. Now, I would definitely say there's both sides, but they're the person that needs to step in when there's a problem to avoid, play almost the role of executive escalation so it doesn't have to get to the business owner all the time. They need to help educate the customer, and then the selling opportunity, obviously, is if you do a good job of helping the customer identify where the gaps in their environment is, where the things that could be a risk to them live, present them with a budget that shows them a predictable plan on how to get there, the sales should just fall off and drop into your hands on the other side. So you don't have to make it this hardcore selling event, and you can actually up-level the perception of, let's say you are the account manager-led vCIO, up-level that account manager status within that customer as well. They're not just looked at as if they got the old dollar sign in their head, which I often wore. So, it's interesting, and I think it's an interesting time for all of us where we can, get this opportunity to really retrench our MSP and look for new revenue models that really sit underneath our nose today.
Yeah, amazing. So we kind of talked about, a general overview of the office. maybe we should go into the core components of this office.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about what the Office of vCIO is really required to do, and again, I'm going to refer it to that, but it could be that singular person, but I'd like you guys to think a little bit better. There are some different needs that fall under that umbrella, and you have these roles, or many MSPs are getting to the point where they have these roles underneath their umbrella, and we'll break this down in future episodes, one by one. But you're obviously going to have somebody that's the named vCIO, right? They're going to be the lead that is really responsible for being that client, line of sight, that client benefactor, and really engage with the customer first and foremost. But they need to be supported by this team that lives in this concept of Office for vCIO. They may have an engineer or a tech, or depending on how you structure things, especially if you're a larger MSP, they may need a couple engineers, one for network as an example, one for systems like servers and workstations, to really help them go through those IT assessments, ensure that we don't have any gaps in process systems or policies, and also make sure that we're being contract compliant during this process as well. Then we need our a security analyst or a vCISO if one exists in our company. And I know this is an emerging area where MSPs are working today. They're building out their security services, they're building out their stacks so they can execute. But in parallel to that, you need to start building your analyst team, or those people that are really kind of keeping in touch with what are the threats coming in, the ones that are looking at the information coming from information sharing organizations and doing that, the ones that are troubleshooting when an event happens and really getting to the root cause of those problems. And those folks need to be in there, as more and more we're going to have to track incident response if something happens, to prove out the right steps were taken, both preventively and then in the incident for a cyber event. So claims can be lessened, all the good stuff that comes when bad things happen. So, we really need to look at, an analyst on the team. Then there could even be some help from your CFO, somebody that can help with budget principles there. Now that could be the business owner too, but understand a lot of times your account managers that you put into that vCIO slot have never managed a profit and loss statement in their life. They've never had P&L responsibility. They've never really talked financial terms. Yes, they talk return on investment and total cost of ownership, but they don't necessarily know what goes into it. So they need some grounding on that too, and some support so they can go out and have that articulate budget conversation when the vCIO is engaging the CFO. And really that even leads into executive escalation. The vCIO needs to know that the ownership's got their back, and this is usually never a problem in the world of MSPs, but they need to know that the owner's got their back. And when a vCIO comes and says, hey, we might need to have a sit down where you need to come in and be that face, talking for the company at the top level, making commitments I can't make, that those people are there to serve the customer and lead them to the future.
Yeah.
So those are some of the
when
core.
You break it down.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was going to say.
No. You were going right where I was going, so it's perfect.
Yeah, it really goes back to what you were saying about, when you think about it with all of these components, you definitely can see why chasing a unicorn is maybe not the most effective way to go about finding this person, and instead making it an office.
Yeah, and again, office can be an informal term, right? It's really just understanding that you've got a team of resources that are helping to support the vCIO. So when that vCIO goes out to conduct these business reviews and engage with their customer, they can come out and say, look, we're trying to change the game of how we communicate with you. We want to be a better partner to you by better understanding where you're trying to take your business. And then we want to look at the initiatives from a technology standpoint that can support that, but also be in tune with what you're trying to do to make sure that the recommendations we're making are really going to push you forward. And if they can't drive your business forward, they probably shouldn't be part of the plan. Imagine how comforting that statement alone is to a customer when you're in this type of setting, because it takes some of that sales immediate mystique out of it, and it really becomes more of an open discussion where, just like any relationship, hey, I want to listen and I want to hear more about you. No matter what you're doing, the partner always appreciates when you listen more than when you talk, right? At least at my house.
Mine too.
So, I think those are some of the, core competencies and some of the things that we're going to break down. But really, I think most MSPs are engaging in this process informally, but haven't actually put the process behind it. And this is such a process-driven industry. We're continually tweaking our back-end processes and things to make things more automated, more engaging, more streamlined. And this is a perfect example. When we get to this part, I see a lot of MSPs just kind of wrestle with who should be doing this? How do we get it done? How are we going to do this overwhelming work effort and get it done in a timeline that can be suitable? And I think if you break it down to chunks and have different people responsible for different things, with the vCIO as kind of the overarching manager, for those that are doing EOS, vCIO can hold almost like a level 10 with your end users every couple of weeks, just to make sure everybody's engaged and those rocks are getting completed for the EOS community. But it becomes a much simpler process, and people feel more engaged with the process too, and don't look at it as penalty box work. Oh, I got to do another one of those assessments.
Sure.
And we'll get into the circle of life in a future call.
Amazing. Well, do you have any other thoughts about this topic before we sign off today?
No, really, I want to hear from you. Do you think I'm washed up here? Do you feel that these are some cogent ideas? Do you think this is something your MSP can structure? I'm interested because I certainly want to understand if I'm missing the boat. But I do know with the 60 or 70 customers that went through ramp camps last year, these were some of the biggest challenges that they were focusing on, and these are some of the things that have gotten themselves to success. Where I'm seeing those $1 million, $2 million, $5 million pipelines very softly get built for their MSPs. So, let me know what you believe, if you think we're on target here, and let me know what you want to hear. Because that's what these get-togethers are for, to hopefully answer the questions that I hear most often and that are presented to us over time.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you, everyone who joined us today, whether you're watching it live or you're coming back and watching it at some other point as it lives in the Facebook world.
Yep. And Rachel, for you, stay warm. Stay out of, go have some fun in the snow, but don't get buried in it. And we will see you on Tuesday you will not be with us for Tuesday's live coaching, but I will see everybody. We go back to our normal 3 o'clock time next Tuesday, and we will do our Tuesday coaching events. So I look forward to seeing folks there, and I hope you can join us.
Awesome. Thanks again.